My dear Wormwood, I am delighted to hear that your patient's age and profession makes it possible, but by no means certain that he will be called up for military service. We want him to be in the maximum uncertainty, so that his mind will be filled with contradictory pictures of the future, every one of which arouses hope or fear. There is nothing like suspense and anxiety for barricading a human's mind against the enemy. He wants men to be concerned with what they do. Our business is to keep them thinking about what will happen to them. Your patient will, of course, have to pick up the notion that he must submit with patience to the enemy's will. What the enemy means by this is primarily that he should accept with patience the tribulation, which has actually been dealt to him, the present anxiety and suspense. It is about this that he is to say, "Thy will be done," and for the daily tasks of bearing this, that the daily bread shall be provided. It is your business to see that the patient never thinks of the present fear as his appointed cross, but only of the things he is afraid of. Let him regard them as his crosses. Let him forget that, since they are incompatible, they cannot all happen to him, and let him try to practice fortitude and patience to them all in advance. For real resignation, at the same moment, to a dozen different and hypothetical fates, is almost impossible. And the enemy does not assist those who are trying to attain it. Resignation to present and actual suffering consists of fear. It is easier, and is usually helped by this direct action. An important spiritual law is here involved. I have explained that you can weaken his prayers by diverting his attention from the enemy himself to his own state of mind about the enemy. On the other hand, fear becomes easier to master when the patient's mind is diverted from the thing feared to fear itself, considered it as a present and undesirable state of his own mind. And when he regards the fear as his appointed cross, he will inevitably think about it as a state of mind. One can therefore formulate this general rule: in all activities of the mind which favor our cause, encourage the patient to be unself-conscious, and to concentrate on the object, but in all activities favorable to the enemy, his mind back on itself. Let an insult, or woman's body, fix his attention outward, that he does not reflect, "I am now entering into a state called anger, or the state called lust." Contrariwise, let the reflection, "My feelings are now growing more devout, or more charitable," so to fix his attention inward that he no longer looks beyond himself, to see our enemy, or his own neighbors. As he regards his more general attitude to the war, you must not rely too much on those feelings of hatred which the humans are so fond of disgusting in Christian or anti-Christian periodicals. In his anguish, the patient can, of course, be encouraged to revenge himself by some vindictive feelings directed towards the German leaders, and that is good so far as it goes. But it is usually a sort of melodramatic or mythical hatred directed against imaginary scapegoats. He has never met these people in real life, and they are lay figures modeled on what he gets from the newspaper. The results of such fanciful hatred are most often disappointing, and of all humans, the English are in this respect the most deplorable milksops. They are creatures of that miserable sort, who loudly proclaim that torture is good for the enemy, and to give tea and cigarettes to the first wounded German pilot who turns up at the back door. Do what you will, there is going to be some benevolence, as well as some malice, in your patient's soul. The great thing is to direct the malice to his immediate neighbors, who he meets every day, and to thrust his benevolence out of our remote circumference to people he does not know. The malice thus becomes wholly real, and the benevolence largely imaginary. There is no good at all, and then flaming his hatred of Germans if, at the same time, a pernicious habit of charity is growing up between him and his mother, his employer, and the man he meets on the train. Think of your man as a series of concentric circles, his will being the innermost, his intellect coming next, and then finally his fantasy. You can hardly hope at once, to exclude from all of the circles that smells of the enemy, but you must keep shoving all the virtues outwards till they are finally located, in the circle of fantasy, and all the desirable qualities, inward to the will. It is only in so far as they reach the will, and are there embedded, in habits that the virtues are really fatal to us. I don't, of course, mean that the patient's mistakes, for his will, in a conscious view, and fret of resolution, and clenched teeth, but the real center, that the enemy calls, the heart. All sorts of virtues, painted in the fantasy or the approval of the intellect or even, in some measure loved, and admired, will not keep a man from our Father's house, indeed they make him more amusing when he gets there, your affectionate uncle, Screwtape.